Hello everyone and welcome to this special Business of InfoSec Top 100 USA panel discussion. My name is Catherine King and I'm the Director of the Business of InfoSec team here at Crinium. Our guests today are featured within the InfoSec Top 100 Leaders in Information Security report, Crinium's list of the world's top 100 leaders in information security. This report exists to celebrate the outstanding work over the last 12 months of some of the greatest minds in information security. And we have brought a few of them together today to discuss some of the hot questions and topics. Now, I am currently addressing two brilliant audiences. Firstly, hello to everyone in CISO Live USA. I hear you're having a great time with April and David today. Please do carry on sending in your questions and comments as you have been doing all event long. But also a big hello to everyone tuning in on LinkedIn Live. It's great to see you. Raddy, Paul, Gareth, lovely to see you in the comments. Please remember to get your questions and thoughts into them. Now, we only have 30 minutes with these brilliant thought leaders. So please get those questions as you have them in, and I will put them to our brilliant thought leaders. Now, without further ado, I will ask them to come up to stage. Welcome. Wonderful, lovely to see so many wonderful faces today. So before we dive into the first question, I'd love to do a round of introductions. So Ray, if you could intro yourself, please.
Hey, hello everybody. My name is Ray Espinoza. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer for Cobalt.io.
Amazing, lovely and quick there. Deneen, hello, welcome. If you would love to intro yourself, please.
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Deneen DiFiore. I'm the Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer for United Airlines. Hopefully you all know who that is. We're one of the largest carriers globally, commercial airlines. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Lovely to have you. And Sandy, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sandy Silk. I am Director of IT Security Education and Consulting at Harvard University, where my team consults with project leaders, faculty around the university on high-risk projects involving either sensitive data or high-risk functionality.
Thank you so much. And Chris, welcome to the panel.
Hello, everybody. Good day. I'm Chris Lugo, Global CISO for Danaher Corporation. We are a Fortune 150 organization that has a myriad of different portfolio companies, everything from life sciences and diagnostics to product identification and water quality.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Gary, hello, welcome.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gary Gooden. I'm the Chief Technology and Security Officer for Seattle Children's Health System, which services Washington, Alaska, Montana, Idaho around pediatric healthcare relative to clinical and research healthcare. I'm glad to be here.
Amazing. And then last but certainly not least, Marianne, hello, welcome. If you'd love to intro yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Miriam Reed. I am the president of Secure Risk Consulting. My prior experience is that I was with a Fortune 5 global company doing a multitude of different security programs throughout that company for over 20 years. So I'm really happy to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. What a great panel we have here today. So welcome to everyone joining us on the various platforms that we're going live on now. So as I said, I've got some questions that I would love to put to the boards of the panel, but I'd also love to ask your questions as well. So please do get those into us. So the first question I want to ask you all, which is kind of the looming context, which is the dreaded COVID-19. But I think it's had such an impact on all of us. And I'd really love to know how COVID-19 has impacted your information security strategy. Has it shelved it? Has the strategy gone to the side? Have you had to create a brand new one? Or are you still plowing ahead with the plans that you had prior to the pandemic? So that's the first question. Chris, if you would love to kick off with that one, please.
Yeah, you bet. What was interesting about COVID for our business is it really thrust us into a number of new areas, up to and including just how publicly visible some of our businesses were. And from a security program standpoint, that changed how we looked at digital risk, and it really upped the ante for us in taking a harder, longer look in some different areas of our brand and our brand reputation, and really what we look like from an attacker's point of view, different going forward than how we've operated in the past. And so we took a long look at what our priorities were, and we made some adjustments and updates. So we're fortunate enough to be able to accelerate a number of activities that were on the docket for last year, but we were able to pull those in with a pretty dedicated and focused team to really drive some expediency, but all centered around how our business was changing and changed as a result of COVID. So pretty exciting year for us in all respects.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Ray, how about yourself? And I know just prior to jumping on live here that you were saying that you've always been remote based. So I think you're going to bring a really interesting perspective towards what many challenges we had with the pandemic. But how did it shift your strategy?
So first, great question, and you're absolutely right. I've been a full-time employee, full-time remote employee for my entire tenure here at Cobalt, and I think we fared fairly well. And we had a few things going for us. We were a cloud-native, cloud-born company. We don't have any infrastructure on-prem in any traditional IT closet. So I'm making the shift to remote work. While we did have offices, everybody within the organization had a component of their work week where they were remote, and so it was easy for us to make the shift and maintain continuity with the way that we ran business. The security strategy really just continued to move ahead. I think there was a bit of uncertainty, like everybody experienced in the beginning, of where's this going and what's going to happen and what should we do. But we then quickly found that once we got a month or so through it, and companies realized, okay, we can make this, and security is still important. Business actually picked up for us, and we actually continue to do really well as the world's leader in pen testing as a service. And so that enabled us to continue to say the strategy that we had, it still makes sense. We're working on both iteratively improving what we already do, but adding net new capabilities that we think make sense for us to continue to grow. And then we just executed. But because we were globally distributed and also remote, we had the channels to drive communication to help our employees understand these are some of the new threats you may see. These are some of the new phishing lures that we're seeing here in the wild. And we had a lot of those set up already, so it made it easy to share information. I know many of my peers and colleagues that I've spoken with had to quickly try to bootstrap some of those channels to get information out and allow folks to come and ask questions. So I'm thankful we did pretty well.
Absolutely. I think what's really interesting in that answer there, Ray, is actually the acknowledgement that the first, month or so, there was a lot of, everyone trying to work out what this really means for them. And then there was almost that quiet period of, okay, now we're in this. But then I think going forward throughout wherever you are in the world, the various lockdown, the various state approaches to the US as well, it's meant there's been lots of different iterations to the response. But fantastic. Sandy, how about you? What's COVID-19 impacted your strategy?
Well, certainly going to a remote campus model was quite different for us than what had been planned. Fortunately, we had been a very cloud-first organization and doing many shifts there, mobile collaboration and two-factor authentication. So we were in a good situation, but some things we just hadn't anticipated, like teaching faculty how to use various video conferencing and video learning platforms, identity and access management for people outside of our immediate community when now you're collaborating with researchers at external locations, external organizations. How do we get them onto the trusted network remotely, as well as telemedicine? We have health services too, so that was something we didn't have on our radar until everyone was remote for so long, to provide some of those kind of village community services.
Absolutely. I can only imagine the struggle of trying to get so many people online so quickly. Gary, how about you? What did COVID-19 do to your strategy?
Well, no need to really go back over the struggles within the healthcare environment relative to COVID. But that said, we quickly pivoted to a remote work structure for most of the non-clinical staff. And from a security program perspective, it actually didn't change. All it really did was accelerate the roadmap of things that we already had in the pipeline. So from that perspective, and given what we had seen in risk landscape as it relates to the types of attacks that we were seeing, some of them were COVID related, and then later on they became quote unquote U.S. election related. It put us in a position to accelerate even faster. So from a security program perspective, it's actually been a good time for us, if that's a thing. So.
I must admit, it always shocks me as soon as I bring up COVID-19, and actually to hear how organizations have really responded with innovations. And it's actually been, the silver lining of obviously what is a very dark and unfortunate situation. But actually, many organizations have really harnessed the positives in that and really moved forwards, which is, absolutely fantastic. Now, I'm aware of time because we've only got 30 minutes, and I know I could talk to you for hours. So I'm going to switch up the question ever so slightly to ask what have been your key learnings over the past year, obviously with the context of how COVID has impacted that. So Deneen, I'm going to come to you first for that. What's been your key learnings?
Sure. So, with COVID, our business models fundamentally changed the way we interact with our employees and our customers. So, what we had to do is we quickly realized that, our attack surface was now everybody's home network or wherever they were, connecting from. So providing a security model that would enable our employees to do work securely wherever they were. And then also the leaning into digital transformation with, contactless travel experiences or self-service options that weren't available before, to make sure that we were, securing those process and those business outcomes appropriately. And that was a real key learning for us, is how security can enable the business model in ways that we weren't able to do before. So we leaned in hard and got some great results.
Fantastic. Marianne, how about yourself? What have been your key learnings over the past year?
I think it's been more about how best to enable our remote resources to really use the right tools, educate them on best practices. And, I think it was I think everyone was surprised at how well the transition went for a lot of employees to go from in the office to remote. But I think we just all pulled together. We made sure we had the right tools, that we worked with the individuals to enable them. I just feel like that transition was really a whole lot smoother than anybody ever anticipated. And so we just took the opportunity to really educate the teams on how to do best practices, how to work remote securely. And it's been very smooth from all the companies I'm working with. It's been great.
That is actually something that's so interesting to hear, actually, that the transition was fairly smooth, given that many companies and many people hadn't worked from home before. So it was a complete cultural shift, which moves me nicely into my next question, which is all about how you're creating and maintaining that organization-wide culture of data security. Now, in the office, for most people, if you see an email come through, you can lean over quite confidently and say, "Oh, this email, did you send that?" And you can kind of check in. When you're at home, you might not feel the same sort of comfort level to check, oh, is this a right email? Or given the stress that so many people have gone through for the last year, they might be inclined to click on more links. And we also know there's obviously more cybersecurity threats going on virtually and digitally now anyway. So how have you been creating and maintaining that security of data culture and making sure it stays at the top of people's minds through what has been a very turbulent and unsettled time for the majority? So Deneen, I'll come to you first for that one.
Sorry, I had a little problem with my mute button. I think, I'm sorry, can we go to another person? I have something going on. Sorry, the work from home thing. Isn't
that just great? I love that. Talking about working from home. Sandy, go for it. Let us know what you've been doing to maintain that culture of data security.
Sure. Well, we've always had an awareness program here called Small Actions, Big Difference. And we really pride ourselves on partnering with people that we want them to be successful. And we offered many remote sessions where people could ask about, how do I protect my family now that everybody's home, using the home network, the home VPN? How do I set up? How do I use Harvard's VPN to do more secure tunneling to assets? How do I use social media securely? So we've focused really on, how do you keep the family safe? How do they do remote learning safely at home with their kids? And then transfer that over to, how does that equate to Harvard? And really building that sense of community, that we're all here to help each other and just get through it. And here are the tools available for you within Harvard, so it's an easy choice what to do the right thing.
I love that. Collaborative and easy choice. That's exactly what we want to be doing. Chris, how about yourself? What have you been doing to maintain that culture?
Yeah, I love what Sandy was just talking about. I mean, it really paralleled some of the approach we took. I think right out of the gate, we recognized that as we now had tens of thousands of workers working from home for the first time, we knew we weren't going to be able to protect everything they did, and they were going to be working in different ways. And so, we tried to deliver as much upfront communication around not only how to use tools like Microsoft Teams and some of the other collaboration suites, but how to do it in a secure way, and also how to leverage other available offerings, like they're probably, some of our workforce was using with Google for their children's academics and studies. And so we tried to make it as personal for them as we could. We also really doubled down our efforts on data security and what it means to classify data, what the impetus of classifying data, what data can be shared and with whom, including what platform should be used to share that data with different external parties, knowing that everyone was working in a different way. And for the most part, folks were just trying to get their day-to-day jobs done and find the path of least resistance, but do it in a secure manner.
Absolutely. I love the acknowledgement there. It's not a case that one size fits all, and there needs to be that tailored approach. Fantastic. Gary, how about you? How has the culture been within your organization? What was the response to the pandemic? And then, how have you been maintaining that over the last year?
So from my perspective, it's two different streams, right? So as I said with respect to the prior question, we pivoted really quickly to a remote work scenario across the 4 states. And for those people who had to be on site, obviously it's a clinical healthcare environment, they had to be on site. But what we did from a structural perspective is that we actually lead with security. So security is actually the tip of the spear. So we converge infrastructure practices and security practices that also tie to cyber physical security practices. So they're all led through one cohesive model. And based on some of the things I heard prior to security awareness programs, keeping security at the forefront of the thought process, all those things continued. While at the same time, some of the other things we did on the end user facing side is really focusing on, as I think Sandy had made reference to and Chris had made reference to, is the whole notion of getting people situated and used to working remotely. The other thing that we have actually been focusing on is really taking this opportunity to work on what I refer to as the true North Star, which is the end user experience. Applying security in such a way that what you're really doing is having the right security controls, whether it be BYOD or not, while removing friction, especially for in a clinical research environment where you have 2 completely different types of mindsets relative to openness and one relative to regulations. And the true North Star is the end user experience, the whole idea of pervasive computing and being able to get to anything from anywhere at any time with the right security controls in place. So that's been foundational to what we've been trying to do, and it's all predicated on our zero trust framework. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Ray, how about you on this topic of culture?
Yeah, we've actually invested very heavily from the start in the human component to security, instilling a sense of responsibility and empowerment to all of our employees. We're a security vendor. We're held to a little bit of a higher standard when it comes to security as a cloud provider, and with that, the extension of the security team really is everybody within the organization. And so all we asked is for folks to lean in and that we would drive education and provide a safe place for them to be able to come and learn and ask questions. And we did that a number of different ways, which resonated really well and continued to serve us well, especially during the pandemic. We do security NPS to get a good understanding of rather than would they recommend us to a friend, are they confident that us as a security organization are doing the right thing at the right time? Are they empowered and do they feel supported in their role? We drive a lot of education to them in security office hours where we do lightning talks, but we enable them to ask questions. Again, very much as Sandy had mentioned, even as well, giving folks a safe place to come and say, hey, is this weird? Or I'm wondering how to do this. And so we use that as a means to really drive guidance and advice, but close our mouths, open our ears and say, what's bothering you? What's on your mind? What are you concerned about? Because that's enabled us to get so much more buy-in when we do that. And I think we thought it was really cool and it worked really well for who we were before the pandemic hit. And it just continued to serve us really well that folks felt like I have a voice and a place to go whenever I have questions. And we build this culture, of we'd rather you report something and it turn out to be nothing than for you to be unsure or be worried about being judged and whatnot. And so we empower our employees to really do that and feel safe and comfortable, but we have to show up that we're going to give them the support and take everything serious. So that's one of the things that I will continue to carry on is we're always going to invest in that. The people portion of people process technology I think has been huge.
Absolutely fantastic. Now I'm so hyper aware of the time, so I'm just going to switch up the question yet again. So Marion, I'll come to you first for this one, but something that's been so front of mind for so many executives I've been speaking to in this space is displaying and communicating that business value, especially in the context of the last year when budgets are cut, and if you aren't quite understanding the value, things become under question. So what are you doing to display and communicate that business value? Marion, I'll come to you first.
Sure. So I think, a lot of conversations lately have really been around understanding the business and understanding the risk that is associated with whatever type of business that you are providing, either it be to your customers or companies that you're working with. And then it's the ability to really translate that risk into an executive audience. And I've found that when you're able to do that, it's easier to get the buy-in. It's easier to get the budget dollars that you need to really mitigate those risks. And so I would say, it's really important that you understand the business. You can't identify a risk and you can't go in front of an executive board and request funding for a project if you can't really explain the risk and understand what that impact is to the overall business. And so I think within IT security, the shift that we're seeing used to be that we would create cookie cutter security. And really, it was about throwing all kinds of controls at an organization. Now, I think you're seeing that it's really taken a business perspective associated with the risk involved and then presenting the overall picture to the board. And I think you get a much higher success rate and a much better buy-in from everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you. Deneen, how about yourself? What have you been doing to display that business value?
Yeah. So I always try to make sure that everything that we're doing, we tie back to a business objective or business outcome. A good example is what we were doing with our Travel Ready Center. If you have flown on United during COVID, all the requirements around if the entry requirements around vaccinations, tests, things like that are integrated into our digital experience now. And we are able to do that because we leaned into understanding the controls and data protection around healthcare information that we didn't have before. We enabled the business to do that. We've never done that before. Same with a higher assurance of identity. And even simple things like, implementing DMARC, right, which is an email security tool. But we were able to say, when we were doing the assessment of that, we were saying, hey, look at these mass marketing emails, because we didn't have that authentication enabled, aren't reaching millions of our customers for our campaigns, and we're losing potential revenue that way. So we were able to translate something simple like that into a business objective. And those are the stories that kind of hit home with our business leaders versus, hey, we upped our email security, yay, yeah, that's great. But we also enabled much more revenue, much more brand reach than we did before.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now we have about 3 minutes left. So the last question I'm going to ask you with a quick fire round from each panelist is, what is your one piece of advice to guide your peers through the next 12 months? I'm not going to ask any of you to pull out a crystal ball and tell me what you think is going to be, but what would be your piece of advice? Now, just whilst you're all thinking of your answer for that, if you are joining us on LinkedIn Live and you fancy popping over to the CISO Live USA event, you will see the registration link in the description. Please do pop in a registration. The team will approve you straight away and you can head into the platform and dive into the rest of the content as well as access the rest on demand. And if you haven't yet read the full Top 100 report, both in the CISO Live resource area as well as in the description on LinkedIn, you will be able to find it there as well. And I do encourage you to read the fantastic interviews which are featured. So you've had about 30 seconds there to think of a piece of advice. So I'll go around to each of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ray, what's your piece of advice?
Sure. I'm nothing if not consistent. So I would say empower your users and your employees, educate them, and frequently ask them for feedback on if you're hitting the mark. That's going to continue to serve me well and something that I will absolutely advocate for to my peers. Thank
you so much for joining us today. Deneen.
Sure. So I would say don't lose sight of the basics, all the things that you have to do around vulnerability management, patch management, those are just things that you have to keep on doing. Don't lose sight of that. But also remember that, every aspect of your digital enterprise, of the digital business model, has cybersecurity risks and implications. So being right up there front to be able to connect the dots with the business is going to help tremendously move you forward.
Amazing, amazing. The clock is ticking. Sandy, what's your one piece of advice?
Let's say remember that IT and security are there to support the organization and make them more successful. So as you're consulting about projects, keep your eye focused on what defines success and how do you make that more successful for them.
Amazing. So much value in such a short time. Chris, that one piece of advice.
Embrace the change that's happened over the last year, whether you call it transformation or digital or any other noun. The fact of the matter is security has never been more important. It's never more of interest to our businesses, our users. This remote hybrid work, whatever the future holds, security is paramount and part of it. Embrace that opportunity and be a business enabler, not a challenger.
Fantastic. Gary?
To Red and Chris's point, security is critical to drive innovation. So depending on what kind of business you're in, ensure that you can tell a story that articulates the vision that you're trying to bring to life.
Fantastic. And then Marion, last but not least.
Okay. So like Ray had said, enable, be there for the business, help them get to the end point and be there and get invited to the party with them. That's going to be key to every success, and any opportunity you have when you're educating your employees, make it personal. It goes a long way when you can do that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you to the entire panel for joining me today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, and I know the CISO Live crew have got another session lined up for you. Now, we will be running these panels every Wednesday on LinkedIn Live. We'll be joined by our UK and European top 100 members next week. So until then, thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye.